Welcome to the Living Life Naturally podcast, the place to be for people who are passionate about living a healthy lifestyle naturally in midlife and beyond. Join certified health and wellness expert Lynn Wadsworth and her guests of consultants, coaches and advisors sharing their expertise on how to navigate the tumultuous waters of midlife with practical solutions to make your life easier and more joyful. Take this time out of your busy life just for you. Expand your knowledge, rest your body, and listen with an open mind. Rejuvenate your soul with helpful information that will make a difference in your life. And now, here's your host, Lynn Wadsworth.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Living Life Naturally. So today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. As you know, we're talking with Christa Elza today about hormones and estrogens. So Christa graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing in 2000, and she was immediately drawn to emergency medicine and was a trauma nurse for 8 years. She was able to experience working in that field in hospitals around the country, which included New York City and Norfolk, Virginia. So she earned her master's degree in nursing from Texas State University in 2018 and is board certified as a nurse practitioner in family practice medicine. And she was a sole practitioner in the clinic, specializing in weight loss, hormone balance, and aesthetics. And during this time, she realized the toolbox of what she could offer for health solutions was too limited for how she wants to serve her patients. And she wants a better way, to help women achieve lasting health results. And with that vision in mind, Christa began her journey with the School of Applied Functional Medicine, a great school, learning the root cause approach to personalized healthcare. So in August of 2020, she launched her virtual health practice, Alive Health, and is now able to provide help to women around the country on one of our favorite platforms, which is, of course, virtually. And as a functional medicine expert, she specializes in clinically investigating underlying factors and fatigue, hormones, thyroid issues, digestive issues, and more. And Christa uses breakthrough diagnostic testing that's rarely done in conventional settings to uncover the hidden causes of why women feel the way they do. So again, welcome to the podcast, Christa, and tell our viewers where you're joining us from.
Hi, thank you, Lynn. I'm so happy to be here. I am in the San Antonio, New Braunfels, Austin area, kind of that northern hill country area. And like you said, I work virtually with my clients. So although I am here in Texas, I serve people all over the country. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, you've got a great background. In fact, you're very similar to my own daughter, who is doing the same kind of thing, but she's still in the nurse practitioner field out and about. So very helpful for me.
Yes.
Great resource for me. So I know today I want to talk a little bit about hormone balance and estrogen dominance. So, I talk about hormone balancing very often, but not so much the estrogen dominance. So, I've read your bio out. It tells us a little bit about your professional career, but is there a reason that you stuck with the hormone? I know you do more than hormones, but is there a reason why you targeted in on the hormone balance, estrogen dominance type of area?
Me also being in my 40s, so I can personally relate to some of the ups and downs of hormone shifts. But it also affects so much of long-term. So it affects moods. It can affect weight gain. It can affect cancers later in life. It really just affects so much of how we can show up in the world. And the time period I've noticed for women, particularly between the ages of 30 and 50, is that life gets really, really crazy in general. So our external world tends to be revved up with maybe our partnership, with children, with career. And on top of that, hormones tend to shift quite a bit. So it's almost like that disruption of puberty in a different way, like reverse. And so it can be a really confusing time and also a very stressful time. So if we can manage ourselves and we can manage the internal world, our body, our health, then it makes our external world appear much less stressful. So that's kind of my passion, because it affects so much of our lives and the lives of the people that we interact with.
Right. That's so true. People tend to think, well, I'm in this phase of perimenopause or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of times maybe they focus just on the weight loss, not realizing that it has such a much broader aspect when it comes to this time in women's lives. So tell us a little bit about specifically the estrogen dominance portion of the hormone imbalances.
Yeah. So estrogen dominance is kind of a blanket term that we use. Sometimes it can mean excess estrogen, and sometimes it can just mean a dysregulation in the proportion of progesterone to estrogen. So as far as sex hormones go, the three primary ones in women are progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. And I like to use a test to really look at a clear picture of what's going on with that. I use the Dutch test, which is a dried urine and cortisol test. Yeah. So you and maybe your listeners are familiar with it, but it's a really great test because we do it at a specific time in your cycle. So this is for women who are still cycling, who are not on birth control suppressing ovulation. So we can look at our natural cycle. And we do it at day 19 to 21 because that's presumably after you have ovulated. And so ovulation is what pushes that progesterone, right? That's the hormone that helps to carry a pregnancy until the placenta takes over. Now, obviously, if you're not pregnant, then all of those decline and we start our period. But we want to look at that period of time between ovulation and when you actually start your period, because we want to see what's happening in the ratio of that progesterone push in relationship to estrogen that's still in the body. So sometimes we have less of a progesterone push due to things like diet or stress or inflammation in the body. And that can come from many sources. But when that ratio is off and there's not enough progesterone to kind of counterbalance that amount of estrogen that was there from the beginning of your cycle, that's where we see bloating and weight, water retention, difficulty losing weight, anxiety, difficulty sleeping, night sweats, because progesterone helps to balance that out. And sometimes because the ovaries just aren't really giving a good push, in perimenopause, it can be helpful sometimes to get on a natural progesterone, not a synthetic progestin, but a progesterone during that last, day 14 to 30 of your cycle. Sometimes women can really benefit from that taken. But there's also so many natural things that we can do to help our body naturally push that. So when we look at the ratio, sometimes we just don't have enough progesterone to really counterbalance that. Sometimes we have higher estrogen symptoms like breast tenderness and weight gain and water retention, bloating, night sweats, all those that I mentioned, because we're not able to detoxify estrogen well. And that comes from mainly two reasons. Number one could be liver detoxification. This is also a period of time where I notice a lot of women drink a lot of wine, right? A lot of alcohol that evening night. Well, alcohol takes precedence in our liver. We have a lot of things that we also need to be detoxifying that include estrogen. We have to produce estrogen, break it down, and then detoxify it. And so when I find that we aren't getting rid of it, then sometimes we just have that overabundance because we're just simply not getting rid of it. So I focus on 3 phases of detoxification, and that includes the liver. It also includes GI health. So if you're finding that you're constipated, i.e. you are not going to the bathroom, a really good bowel movement every single day, you might not be opening the drain of the bathtub, so to speak. And that can lead to too much estrogen in the body simply because we're not getting rid of it. So it's really important to focus on digestive health during this time as well. So again, estrogen dominance is kind of a blanket term, but it can be caused by multiple things. It's generally not because we're making too much estrogen. It's because we're not balancing it out or we're not getting rid of it well.
What kind of detoxification methods do you use?
So like I said, we have 3 phases of detoxification, and you want to work backwards because you don't want to upregulate, the bathtub flow, as it's been said a lot online. You don't want to turn up the water of phase 1 if you're not getting rid of it with a drain in phase 3. So you want to work backwards. Number 1, you want to work on gut health and make sure that you are pooping regularly. So increasing fiber, decreasing dairy helps for a lot of women. I love integrating chia seeds into a smoothie, kiwi. Those are great ways to increase fiber. Make sure you're going to the bathroom regularly. And then secondly, we want to make sure that we have a good amount of B vitamins on board. We are able to kind of process and do the enzymatic changes that need to happen in our body. So I find a lot of women need magnesium and a B complex. Okay. And then as far as liver detoxification, things like peppermint and cilantro and ginger in your diet can really help upregulate that. And then as far as supplements go, I like to include milk thistle. That's a really powerful support for the liver. So kind of working backwards, making sure your gut health is healthy, making sure you've got a few supplements on board, and then upregulating detoxification of the liver. And, the first thing would be increase water and decrease alcohol, right? So those are kind of the first things to do as far as liver detoxification.
Right. So I'm going to ask you something kind of off topic here. So you specifically said the Dutch test is for people who are still having their periods. So what about women when they get either past their periods or maybe they've had a partial hysterectomy? What kind of tests do they need to do? Because I think for the rest of our lives, we need to have our hormones balanced.
Yes. So I still recommend the Dutch test for those women. I've had several clients who've had a partial, so they still have ovaries. Sometimes it's a bit difficult then to pinpoint the day that they are in the cycle because they don't have a period to let them know. But there's other ways to manage that. We can look at other tests or symptoms to kind of pinpoint that. It's also important for postmenopausal women to, especially if they're considering hormone replacement, to understand how they're metabolizing estrogen. So the reason I love the Dutch test, which is a urine test and a saliva test over just a blood test, is that this also gives us information on how well we are detoxifying. And so it kind of shows us those 3 phases, like I was telling you about. And that's super important because I think it's powerful to do bioidentical hormone replacement for women. There's so many benefits to it with mood and sleep and cardiovascular health, bone health, right? So estrogen is very beneficial to many cells in our body. We've got receptors throughout our body. But it also can give us information on how well you're detoxifying. So if you are getting hormone replacement, we want to make sure you're going down the safe pathways so that you're not unknowingly at higher risk for uterine or breast cancers with hormone replacement. So this can be really beneficial in making sure that we are balanced with that. It can also give us information around our adrenal glands because you collect saliva during that time. And adrenal glands also produce some of our sex hormones. And particularly that's the main place that we get it after menopause. This is also why stress management and learning how to manage the stress is so important in our 30s and our 40s, because women who tend to have better stress management skills during those times have an easier time in that transition, because the adrenal glands then aren't as stressed as the ovaries decrease estrogen production. That's when they're really like, okay, we're the only ones in town anymore, right? And if the adrenal glands, which also produce cortisol, have been really working hard over the past decade, it can make menopause seem much more stressful. and you may experience a lot more mood disruption and hot and, night sweats and all of the discomfort of menopause. You might experience it on a greater degree if you haven't managed that. But the Dutch test can also tell us how well the adrenal glands are functioning by measuring cortisol and how well they're functioning and metabolizing cortisol as well. So it really gives us a beautiful picture, whether you're cycling or not. We're just looking at different things primarily.
And so where would one get a Dutch test? Because I don't think that Western doctors do that.
Yeah, it is fascinating to me. I myself went in for my yearly and asked my GYN if she had heard about the Dutch test, and she had no idea. So it's wild and very frustrating to me that this is still available to us and yet still not mainstream. You would want to look for providers such as myself who do the Dutch test. So I provide the Dutch test, whether or not you're in Texas. I'm able to just ship the kit to you and do it. You want to find a provider. Generally, you're going to look at more naturopaths, functional medicine doctors who utilize this test. There might be GYNs that do it, but I find a lot of them in the conventional setting don't. And a big reason might be because it's not covered by insurance. And so since a lot of, offices are driven by that, it could hinder some people, but it's honestly a test that I recommend. It's a great investment yearly to make sure. It's almost like your mammogram, right? You want to make sure that your body is really handling these hormones well, and you're not at risk for like I said, cancers or it can offer you a lot of answers when it comes to some of your symptoms, that it's not in your head, and it's also treatable. There's also lifestyle changes we can make so you don't have to suffer through whatever symptoms are coming up for you.
Right. So I know that one of the things that you address is the whole sleep issue, because that's such a big issue for women in that whole perimenopause, menopause, postmenopausal phase.
Yep.
And how do you, and in fact, I know that you've got something on your website that's a free offer for people to help with sleep. So,
yes. Yep. On my website, you'll find the freebie there. You can download it. The return of investment, the ROI of sleep. We really want to get good quality sleep, because that's where our body does a lot of the detoxification in our brain, in our liver, throughout our body. But ways that you can help with sleep is, number one, I like to use breath. Breath work is proven to be so helpful in long-term stress. And I like to tell my patients and clients that your good sleep starts during the day, because if you are running ragged all day long, your body doesn't know how to, your brain is still kind of running on that fight or flight, right? Because our brains just don't have the awareness of a traffic jam or stress with our children or our teenagers or our partner. It doesn't know the difference between that and a really life-threatening situation, right? It's still on high alert. And so if you would imagine, if you were out in the wild and you had been fighting, real life-threatening situations, you're not going to sleep well that night. And that's the same. And so we need to start during the day with focusing on breath techniques. The easiest one that I pass along to all of my clients is box breath. And if you haven't heard of it, it's breathing in for a count of 4, holding that for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 4, and hold at the bottom for a count of 4. And then repeat that 4 or 5 times. You can do that as you're unwinding for bed at night. You can use that technique if you wake up in the middle of the night, so that you can focus on that and not letting your mind run wild. A few quick supplements that can kind of across the board be used is magnesium. Magnesium glycinate is my favorite form of that. It's most tolerated by people as far as GI upset. But about 300 milligrams of magnesium in the evening can be helpful. And then I also like the L-theanine. That is another really great supplement that is widely used. And it just kind of takes the edge off of that monkey brain. And so I like to use it. I give it to even to my 14-year-old sometimes when he's got a lot going on at school and he's feeling anxious. L-theanine, it doesn't really make you feel any different. It just takes the edge off of that scattered brain feeling. So it's a very calming supplement. So magnesium and L-theanine and breath work can be a place to start as far as calming your brain and sleeping more soundly. Other things to avoid, obviously, are late in the evening caffeine. Some people are more sensitive than others. Some people need to stop by noon with caffeine. And then sugar or eating too late can really disrupt that circadian rhythm. So starting there is a place to begin in getting better quality sleep. And then also just prioritizing it. Sometimes we just watch TV too late, or we're scrolling the phone too late. Like you can't really change your morning schedule oftentimes, but you can change your evening schedule. So play around with it, experiment, go to bed at 9:30 and see how much better you feel versus doing that typical 11:30 or midnight because you're watching TV too late.
And of course, I'm assuming that getting a good night's sleep helps some with the brain fog that we seem to experience.
There's no pill that can replicate the power of the foundations of enough water in your day. That's another thing. Really making sure you're drinking 60 to 90 ounces of water every day, getting foundational sleep, taking deep breaths. All of these are very simple foundational things, but you cannot take a pill that's going to replicate the power of those things for your body.
Right. So important. So do you have any really good tips or last minute tips, something that you would like to say to our women who are going through this phase of life?
I just want women to know that it can feel like a very confusing time because your body feels different. Maybe stress is a lot higher. There's a lot of transitions during this time. And conventional medicine, from what I have experienced as a former provider in that setting, just oftentimes does not give you the empowerment that you deserve when it comes to your body. Solutions are available. And testing is available so that you know exactly what your body needs as far as lifestyle changes or supplemental changes or hormone replacement. There's a very targeted approach and it is available to you. Like I said, I can't overestimate or underestimate, the stress management and the foundations that really will serve your body, and having accountability and direction is possible for you. And that's really the message that I send, is that empowered health is your superpower. And so the more that you know, the more you feel in control in a seemingly uncontrollable period of your life.
Yeah, very true. So where can people find you? What's the best place for them to connect?
Yeah, everything is my first and last name. So ChristaElza.com. Also on Instagram, I'm Christa Elza, and Facebook as well. I am pretty active on social media, and then there's definitely a location that you can reach out and set up a call with me on my website.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being here with us today, Christa. I have this passion to get the word out to women in this midlife phase because it, as you say, it's a very confusing time. And I think that women should be empowered and know that this can be an exciting time in their lives.
Exactly. Yep. It's just on to the next phase and we get to feel amazing through it all.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us and for all of your knowledge.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Living Life Naturally podcast, where we're on a mission to inform, inspire, and encourage women to live their best life in midlife and beyond, confidently, joyfully, and free from what's been holding them back. For show notes and free resources, visit holistic-healthandwellness.com. I'd be delighted if you'd follow us on socials to connect further. If you enjoyed this show, why not share it with your friends? If you found good value, chances are they will too. Of course, a 5-star review on iTunes is always greatly appreciated, as much as I appreciate you listening. Until next time, live life naturally and joyfully.